XP. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about Argentina's recent primary election where Javier Milei, a pro-Bitcoin anarcho-capitalist who hates central banks, was the surprise winner, and how this is becoming an undeniable trend as the Overton window shifts further and the evils of fiat money go mainstream. Spoiler alert, this is bullish for Bitcoin. Let's dive in. Argentina, which has famously been decimated by fiat-induced economic mismanagement over the years, just held their primary election, and Javier Milei, an outspoken libertarian and anarcho-capitalist, was the surprise winner, garnering nearly 32% of the votes to become the undeniable favorite to win the presidency in the October election. Milei is radically anti-establishment and has even revealed plans to abolish the Central Bank of Argentina. Here's a clip of him on live TV beating the shit out of a central bank themed piñata.
Pará, bueno, basta. Pará. Ahí está.
No, listo.
Pará. Llévatelo.
His surprise victory in the primaries is a clear indication of the growing disillusionment with the established political order, who, like here in the US, mostly serve the central bankers. Argentina's inflation rates have screamed up this year to a staggering 120%, and the people are pissed about it. Milei's unfiltered approach has made him a beacon for many, especially the younger demographic. Check this out. He recently filled an entire stadium of supporters chanting, "Oh, let them all go. Not a single one left. Let them all go," referring to the political establishment. Milei's positive views on Bitcoin garnered a lot of attention late last year. Here's a clip from a TV broadcast where Milei eloquently explains his views of Bitcoin as, quote, the natural reaction to central bank scammers.
No sabemos bien qué son los Bitcoin, pero ya hay gente que lo pondera como una especie de alternativa monetaria. ¿Vos creés que es posible en Argentina esa discusión?
A ver, ¿cuál es el punto? El punto es que lo primero que hay que comprender es que el Banco Central es una estafa, ¿sí? Es un mecanismo por el cual los políticos estafan a las personas de bien con el impuesto inflacionario. El Bitcoin lo que está representando es la vuelta del dinero a su creador originario, que es el sector privado. El dinero es una invención del sector privado para resolver problemas, digamos, de lo que tiene que ver con, en una economía de trueque, sería la doble coincidencia y la indivisibilidad. Y después aparece el papel, digamos, como una cuestión de portabilidad. El Bitcoin, no, digamos, tiene un algoritmo y un día va a llegar a una determinada cantidad y no hay más. ¿Qué es lo interesante? Que es la vuelta al sector privado. Pero ¿cuál es el problema? El problema es que los estados no te van a querer ceder que el curso forzoso, porque del curso forzoso te estafan con el impuesto inflacionario. Entonces, el Bitcoin es la reacción natural frente a la estafa que son los bancos centrales y que el dinero vuelva a ser privado, y la contracara es que los políticos ladrones no te van a permitir ir contra el curso forzoso. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Cuando vos tenés economías con alta inflación y el problema de la estafa es más claro, entonces hasta podés discutir, como digamos, planteo yo, directamente eliminar el Banco Central.
The man does not mince words. It's clear he has strong economic views rooted in the Austrian tradition, which many Bitcoiners align with. His surprise win has sent Argentine markets into chaos. How do the central banks respond? By devaluing their currency by an additional 18%. Sam Callahan, lead analyst at Swan, tweeted, "A pro-Bitcoin candidate that wants to end the Central Bank of Argentina wins a key primary election, and the government response is to devalue the currency 18% overnight. Unbelievable." It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them. Meanwhile, Bitcoin just made all new time highs against the Argentine peso. The devaluation caused a Bitcoin God candle when priced in Argentine pesos, which of course means Bitcoin has done its intended job shielding Argentinian Bitcoiners from fiat devaluation. Now, whether or not Milei wins the presidency in October isn't the important point here. And the reason this is bullish for Bitcoin has nothing to do with any particular global political figure. What makes this bullish is the undeniable trend and the shifting of the Overton window. Quick definition for you degenerates out there. The Overton window is the range of policies politically acceptable to the mainstream population at a given time. Politicians can only act within that acceptable range. sort of like a box. So shifting the Overton window involves proponents of policies that are outside the window persuading the public to expand the window. Proponents of current policies or similar ones within the window seek to convince people that policies outside of it should be deemed unacceptable. So the people that are already in the window try to keep it that way, and the people that are outside the window try to basically broaden the window. The concept that inflation is bad, that central banking is bullshit, and Bitcoin have all slowly shifted further and further within the Overton window. In North America, this all started last year when Canadian conservative politician Pierre Poilievre gave a history lesson on money in his speech in the House of Commons.
Money, of course, is merely a technology by which we transport value over time and space. And without it, our species would have to consume in the present everything that it produces. Over time, money has taken many forms. In one South Pacific island, it was just a ledger carved on a scarce limestone. In some places, it's been beads or seashells. Throughout history, it became metal, some precious, some brute. We had gold, we had silver, we had copper. Politicians have found it a nuisance to pay their bills using money with integrity. King Henry VIII decided that he could get his hands on money by clipping coins. Throughout the 20th century, we saw this same tactic of cash creation in, of course, with the most famous example was in the early 1920s in Germany. They had created so many new units of account that inflation ran rapid out of control. You needed to have a wheelbarrow full of cash in order to buy a loaf of bread. Governments had hard money from the end of the war until the early 70s. And in that period, of course, we had an enormous amount of prosperity. The Americans paid off their war debts. Here in Canada, with solid currency, we wrestled the inflationary beast to the ground in the post-war era. And in the decade that followed 1971, not only did they unleash the American dollar from any particular standard, but they increased the number of U.S. dollars in circulation by 150%, while output only grew by about 39%. And so you have more dollars chasing fewer goods, and what do you get? Inflation.
Seems like someone has been reading the Bitcoin Standard. Poilievre went so far as to broadly support Bitcoin. He even suggested the ability to, quote, opt out of inflation by exchanging fiat for Bitcoin. Of course, his political opponents used this as a weapon against him when the price fell late last year. But his words around money, inflation, money printing, and Bitcoin struck a powerful chord with many across Canada, as they weren't used to hearing such things from a politician, especially one that would go on to become the leader of a major political party. The Overton window shift was undeniable. Fast forward to this year, and multiple U.S. presidential candidates and politicians are following in Poilievre's footsteps by bringing the topic of money printing and inflation being bad to the mainstream consciousness. Here's a clip of Democratic presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. on Joe Rogan earlier this year talking about just that.
We printed $300 billion new dollars to bail out the Silicon Valley Bank. And we topped off the Ukraine war commitment to $113 billion. So we got lots of money for the military-industrial complex, lots of money for the bankers, the banksters. But we're starving Americans to death, starving them. And because of all the inflation, we spent $16 trillion on the lockdown. We wasted, got nothing for it. $8 trillion on the Ukraine war. That's $24 trillion that they had to print to pay for nothing. That money, the way they're paying it back, they're not going to tell us they're raised taxes because you can't do that. It's a hidden tax called inflation, and it hits the poor and the middle class, and it has dismantled the middle class in this country.
We haven't heard a U.S. politician speaking like that since Ron Paul in 2008. RFK Jr., along with several other presidential candidates, have also gone on to embrace Bitcoin very publicly, some even announcing pro-Bitcoin policies. Democrat RFK Jr., Republican Vivek Ramaswamy, and independent Tulsi Gabbard all gave keynote speeches at the Bitcoin 2023 conference. That's a big deal. Republican Ron DeSantis has also come out in support of Bitcoin and even made plans to ban central bank digital currencies in the state of Florida, where he is currently governor. RFK Jr. went the furthest during a recent speech where he announced his administration's plan to exempt Bitcoin from capital gains taxes and to back a small portion of the U.S. national debt with hard assets, including Bitcoin.
the Kennedy administration will begin to back the US dollar with real finite assets such as gold, silver, platinum, and Bitcoin, which is the world's hardest liquid asset, to strengthen the US dollar and guarantee its continued success as the world reserve currency. My plan would be to start very, very small. Perhaps 1% of issued T-bills would be backed by hard currency, by gold, silver, platinum, or Bitcoin. And then, depending on the outcome, we would increase that annually. And what this will do is we will be able to use Bitcoin to help save the US dollar.
Now, obviously, the backing of US debt with Bitcoin has very low chance of actually happening. RFK Jr. is a fringe candidate, and his chances of actually winning the Democratic nomination do seem slim. His chances of actually implementing this debt backing policy, if he does win, seem even lower. Again, what's most interesting here is the trend. A few years ago, no politician in their right mind would even consider mentioning Bitcoin. Today, only fringe politicians are advocating for it. Through their advocacy, though, the Overton window is slowly but inexorably shifting to include Bitcoin. Soon enough, we will have a mainstream politician who is fully orange-pilled and drinking that Kool-Aid. As concepts like fiat, inflation being bad, and the dangers of central bank digital currencies penetrate further into mainstream dialogue, the idea that Bitcoin is the solution isn't far behind. So, what do you think? Is this just political pandering on the part of these politicians? How far away are we from actually having a pro-Bitcoin president? Will it rain tomorrow? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe, or I'll feed all your family prized heirlooms into a wood chipper. That's a promise.